I don't know what's going on. This is an entire starting rotation that is on the injured list. I know some of it was sort of air quotes planned, like the Robbie Ray thing. This is what was expected upon acquisition. So that's different. And the Tristan Beck thing happened before the year even started, and Alex Cobb, while slowed and there were setbacks, was the extension of an injury we already knew about. But when you add those two things into Kyle Harrison joining the injured list and the Blake Snell situation, having still not won a game or even pitched in a game that the Giants have won at $31 million, it makes you roll your eyes. And I think deal with kind of your entry point to what it means for the Giants. Like, to what level does just that fact, 5 starters on the injured list, to what level does that give them a pass for the record that they have or the way that they've played? And by the way, the record isn't terrible. You know, they sit in, let me check.
They're the third wild card.
They're in the playoffs right now.
Exactly. But
they're in the playoffs.
Yes, and you've got 79 games left to go. 73 down. Yeah, I had it right. 89 left to go.
Yeah.
So still a good number of games left to go.
More than half of them.
But I am not of the mind to, quote, give them a pass, because injuries happen, and you built up a lot of reserves to make it so that these injuries wouldn't affect you, but you signed a guy late, and he got hurt because he didn't have spring training. And you signed a guy coming off Tommy John, and he hasn't pitched. And you signed another guy who is coming off a surgery, and he's had setbacks and all the rest of it. Now, the Kyle Harrison one, what are you going to do? I mean,
what are you going to do? I mean,
that's freak injury on a box jump. That's just bad luck. But the other ones, I mean, that's kind of not you reap what you sow, but when you make those signings, when you sign a guy coming off of Tommy John, this is kind of what you get. Maybe you get half a year from him, and we don't even know if he'll ever pitch. He might be like that one guy, Matthew Boyd, who they signed, who was hurt, and then they traded him before he ever pitched.
I don't think they'll do that.
I don't either.
Robbie's got multiple years left on his deal. Like,
he does,
he could be a Giant for a little while.
You know, for me, you don't get a pass based on those 3 guys. Kyle Harrison, freak injury, whatever.
You know, it's not even, maybe that's not even the right question. You know, give him a pass. Like, the Giants have been, they've been both disappointing, and they have, I think, some fair excuses for the way that it looks. What I do, especially in moments where you're feeling very annoyed, one of them was walking back to the car after their loss on Saturday. That was a game they had no business losing. None against the Angels. But they did. They found a way to lose it. And then they're doing right now what they've been doing all year, which is just when you have the 2 or 3 losses where you're like, this is gross and this team is a joke, they'll boopity-bop, and here comes the win streak. You score 13 runs, and then you yank one from the Cubs right out from under their noses with 7 spot with a dramatic 3-run homer. You score 20 runs in 2 games, get a couple of wins, move back into a playoff spot, and everyone's like, okay, all right, we got action. So
and then you lose 4-6.
And then you lose 4-6, and it's back and forth, and it's very, very frustrating. I won't go nuclear. I mean, I already went nuclear once this year.
Yep.
But that was not about the standings. That was about the way the ball
flop.
I mean, just,
blew everywhere, and they played like crap.
So that was more about vibe. That was more about things that I think the organization can control and hasn't done a great job controlling. But I won't go nuclear until this visual shows itself to not be possible. Because I still sit here today, and while you may go to Twitter and go, Trenton Brooks, this is ridiculous. Well, right. And a week from now or 2 weeks from now, Lamont Wade is playing. Trenton Brooks is in Sacramento. Okay, so there's that. And then, okay, what are you waiting for next? Well, Blake Snell needs to be activated and look like Blake Snell. And then Kyle Harrison needs to have 2 healthy ankles and keep building on his recent performances and be a part of the starting rotation. And then Alex Cobb and Robbie Ray need to be a part of this in some way, shape, or form. And Elliot Ramos, certainly not going to ask for a 1,000 OPS, but he needs to continue to be a really good player and just man center field and the number 2 hole in the lineup. And then I think the last thing on the wish list is probably for Matos to find his way back into this whole thing. You know, Slater, since being called back up, since coming through the concussion, he's been pretty good, actually.
Yeah.
He's had some really good games. He's been a factor. Conforto is the flavor of the week right now that's frustrating because he is really slumping. He has not gotten his timing back since coming off of injury. There will be more injuries. There's going to be other things that happen, poor play, whatever. Does Soler really sort of kind of have it figured out? He's certainly been better. He's been better in the last.
Chapman's another guy who is a little bit milk carton right now.
Slumping a little bit, but I mean,
4 for 28 over the last week.
Chappie has shown that he's going to be whatever he's going to be, though. Like
hot and cold.
Well, but there's no move to be made there. That's your third baseman.
For sure.
And you're going to have
still, it's frustrating when you see him play so well for a week and then he's so lost again for a week.
Well, and that's the normal flow of players, right? Like the visual for me is Wade back, rotation healthy, Matos on the team, Ramos playing well. That's the vision. And if that visual, which is very reasonable, I think, if that visual comes to be within the next, I'd say, what do you want to call it, a month? Maybe
before the All-Star break.
Okay. So if that visual comes to be, is that a team that A, you'd be excited about, and B, can do some damn things in the second half of the season? My answer to both of those would be yes.
I give you a yes and a no.
Okay, what's the no?
I mean, do some damn things like win 87 games and be a wild card? Sure. I don't think that you're going to be able to go on a run and beat Philadelphia or the Dodgers. I don't think you're going to beat a really good team.
You mean in the playoffs?
Right. I mean, can you make the playoffs? Yeah.
These series are short. I mean, they are. Like anything could happen.
For sure.
It's not crazy to think that any baseball team in the playoffs can beat any baseball team, especially if, and this is, again, maybe I should have added this to the visual, if the Giants were to make the playoffs, let's say people are sort of pitching like you think they can pitch, just even like, B-plus level of themselves. Are you comfortable in a short series, no matter who you are? Dodgers, Braves, Phillies, whatever. Are you comfortable, confident, walking into a series that goes Webb, Snell, Ray? I mean, that's not nothing. That's
right.
not nothing. That's like, I mean, they've got some people who could shove.
Yeah. I mean, right now, when you say that, it's hard for me to not go to the cynical and say, Logan Webb has been good.
That's fair.
Blake Snell's been awful. And Robbie Ray is a DNP. So if you want to take all three of those guys and put them at B-plus level in October, then maybe you've got something. But I can't imagine, Blake Snell's track record shows you that he usually is B-plus or actually A- after July 1st.
Or A+.
But he hasn't had this sort of a first half ever
also fair.
In his career. He's been hurt twice. He's got more injuries than he does wins. I think it's 2-0 injuries to wins.
That's correct.
Robbie Ray has got more injuries than he has appearances. 1-0. One injury, 0 starts. So
it was an injury that was already there. It wasn't.
Still, he is injured.
Yep,
he does have an injury.
Yes.
I've got an injury that happened 25 years ago, and I'm still injured.
You should get it looked at.
So I have multiple times, and I'm getting the needle next Tuesday.
Are you really?
Oh, yeah. A little cortisone.
You're looking forward to it.
Shout out Dr. Krinsky twice a year, and I wait for it because it's a 6-month deal, and the first 4 months are good, and then it's that 2-month slog. When you see the knee brace go on, it's all right.
That's why when you were trying to go from first to second in the softball game, I could have read a book.
Well, that's just because I'm old and slow, and
aren't we all? But
anyway,
go ahead.
So if you want to put them at B-plus level, you can do that. You're allowed to. I think it's a bit of a stretch.
Well, again, understand where I'm coming from. I'm not predicting that. I'm not saying it's likely.
No, you're saying if that is the case, then they become a tough out.
I think this is a reasonable possibility.
I think it's unreasonable.
Okay. By the way, I said I picked Robbie Ray just out of respect for winning the Cy Young. it's not, okay, forget, maybe it's not Robbie Ray. What if it's Alex Cobb? And what if he pitches like he did last year? What if it's Kyle Harrison? What if, and I know this is wild, what if Jordan Hicks actually does start for the whole year? What if he does?
Yeah.
I know everyone just assumed that that's not going to happen. I don't know that it's not going to happen. I have no idea. I wouldn't have thought he was going to do this well. So as long as that sits out there as the visual, the hope, not the prediction, but the hope, I don't know if you go nuclear on this yet. Of course not. I do think there are some things happening right now that because the Giants are under 500, because the PTSD of a boring team and an injury-riddled team, because these things are happening, there are things that get lost. And I think it's one of our main points today. I do think that what's gotten really, unfortunately, lost to a degree is the player you've been asking for is here. He checks every box of what you've been asking for. And I know it's just like a golfer who's like, all I want in life is to break 80 one time. And you'll shoot a 79 and you go, it should have been a 76. I missed those stupid 4-foot putts.
Yeah.
Right? Like you always, once you get what you want more. So I understand that. But Giants fans, we have now said for 2.5 years, where's our guy? When is the farm system going to produce an exciting player with swag? Seems like preferably an outfielder, because there's always been that whole, like, we've had a different left fielder every year for
ever since Bonds.
Our entire lives. So homegrown, outfielder, swag, production, I'd like a jersey. I want to watch him hit. I don't want to go to get a snack when that guy's up at the plate. That's the list of what, right? Am I wrong? We've been asking for that. Well, here he is.
Yep, looks to be the real deal.
You into it?
I'm super into it.
This is what we've all been asking for.
And when I know he's coming up, I make sure that I stay tuned because of what he can do to all fields. And you were asking earlier, kind of an open question, and you were saying it feels like half of his home runs this year, half of Ramos's home runs have been at least the other way.
I think it's at least 3 of the 9.
I
Did
got
you look it up?
Two of them looked like they were slightly to the right of center.
Well, last night
two
was,
for
right?
sure were in right field.
Arizona.
And then the other 5 are left field.
Okay.
But it looks like 4 of the 9 are either right over second base or slightly to the right. He's got 2 that are legit Oppo tacos, and then he's got 5 that are pull jobs. But he is an all-field threat, and it's fun watching him. And the cut you played earlier from the morning roast about how he's, figured out how to not have to swing so hard and let the ball in and just use all fields. You watch him hit, and he's just line drives everywhere. It's a laser show.
Yeah, now this is what Dibs is referring to right here from the roast this morning.
I just want to stay with what's my nature, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was always, since I was a little, I was always good to hitting the ball the other way. I didn't know how, but I was good doing it. So now it's like, now that I talk to the hitting coaches, now that I talk to so many people throughout my years, they help me realize that, you don't need to muscle, like, you don't need to do more to hit the ball out. You can just have a good approach and the ball will go out by itself, So I'm just trying to stay simple and stay compact at the plate.
Elliot Ramos on with the morning roast, Odyssey app, YouTube, if you want to hear the whole thing.
I love it. I've always been good at it. I don't know how, but it's like, I mean, you don't have to know how. Yep. And he looks really natural at it. He lets the ball travel. And outside pitches, he stays inside it, and he just absolutely demolishes it to the right side.
Sponsored by Safeway.